everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, and it's time for another Well That Happened video. This is the day that I look back on the comic book news of the previous week. I find a story that particularly intrigues me or interests me, and then I let you know my thoughts and opinions on said story. Obviously, the huge news that came out last week was that the current Marvel Universe is no more. Yes, change is a-coming at Marvel headquarters, and it all starts with an 8-issue miniseries, Secret Wars. Now, to begin with, it does kind of make me laugh that they are using what is essentially a 30-year-old plus storyline to kick off. Now, okay, they haven't used the word, but it does sound incredibly like a reboot, a reset, starting the universe from scratch. Indeed, last week, executive editor Tom Brevoort said, "The Marvel Universe as you know it is done. The Ultimate Universe as you know it is done." And then editor-in-chief Axel Alonso chipped in and said, "This is putting an end cap on decades of stories. This is a place where we'll be putting new pieces on the board and taking old pieces off." So, enough said? Well, of course not. Marvel fans blew up the internet, whether it was on Twitter, Facebook, all those comic book forums. They went into critical mass. But it wasn't actually them that I was interested in actually hearing their opinions, because I could know exactly what they were going to say. But it was actually the pioneers of Marvel, those icons of Marvel's creative history, and what they had to say that I was actually more interested in reading. Now, I'm going to start with Jerry Conway and what he initially had to say about the whole thing. And he said, "I think, like with any idea, the execution will matter more than the idea. The idea of a reset is by itself not a bad idea." And I agree. Look at the new DC 52 as a comparison, because it's bound to have similarities. While it was a really good idea on the surface of rebooting all their titles back to issue 1, what DC didn't do was have a clear plan of what had happened and what hadn't, because they had this huge canon of work behind them, which a lot of the things, you know, having fans lose that would have been a huge deal to them. They had to keep certain things in the history of, say, Batman, Green Lantern, Superman, and it all got a bit messy and mixed up. There wasn't a straight blank slate, and this is what I hope Marvel will essentially do, and have a more coherent starting point, because I don't think DC really had. They tried to address it later on, and it looks like with their huge event Convergence, they may be trying to rectify those early errors, but we'll see. Next, we had Walt Simonson chime in, and he said, "As a professional, I totally understand the idea of rebooting stuff, or trying to find a new way to tell stories. I separate my fan life from my professional life, and I understand why they want to do it. And to some extent, I do too. At the moment, I have no Marvel comics on my pull list. Sure, I pick up a couple if they're on the shelves. I pick up Thor and I pick up Guardians 3000. I pick up Thor because I'm kind of interested in the female Thor aspect of it, but I don't think that will last that long, which is why I haven't permanently put it on my pull list. And Guardians 3000, it's just a fun comic that I like to read. read. There's nothing that's grabbing me to go, I must have that on my pull list. So to have all this slew of new titles all beginning again might make me buy more Marvel. I mean, when DC rebooted with their New 52, my pull list of DC probably tripled in size, if not more. At that point, I had not even picked up one Batman title as a single issue. I always used to pick and choose what Batman stories I wanted to read in trade. So from that perspective, I'm on board. I would like to go back to Marvel. I used to be a huge Marvel boy and just picked all the X titles. I used to pick up all the kind of Avengers titles until a point when they kept rebooting and starting an issue 1 again. So for me, this could find me coming back to the Marvel stable. John Romita Senior then came in and he quoted, "My guess is new fans will be okay with it and old fans will grumble. My basic reaction is usually, let's see the evidence in the field. Let's come back in a year and see what we've got, and that will tell the story." And I completely agree. As usual, and you know, the comic book community as a whole is a rabid bunch. And it's always this knee-jerk reaction when something new is put forward by the big companies. And I understand change is scary and you're quite happy and comfortable in your little bubble, but it will become stagnant after a while and you will get bored and move on. So let's, as Romita says, let's let this happen. Let's see what happens in a year where they've taken it to, and then make the decision. Now, Stan Lee, well, he was his usual typical vague and ambiguous self in his comments about this. He said, "It's probably good. Anything they do that's unexpected and different usually captures the attention of the fans. I think it's probably a good idea. It sounds intriguing to me." And let's be honest here, you know that Stan Lee's heart belongs to the Marvel of the 60s and always will. But the 60s were over 40, 50 years ago, and times, people have changed. But it was Conway's final comment regarding this, and it was the comments made by fans alike, Marvel just ruined my childhood kind of comments. And he very succinctly said, "I would say no to them. Your childhood is still your childhood. There is a point to be made, and it's a universal one. We have to see that there's a difference between what people do today and what they did yesterday. Yesterday still exists. Those stories still exist. Now someone else is getting a chance at a new childhood." And I completely, wholeheartedly back that comment. Enough said. So, let me know what your thoughts and feelings are about this Marvel reboot. Is it a good thing? It's a bad thing? What are you hoping that Marvel will do with this new universe? Will you be jumping on to the Secret Wars to see it all start off and kick off this huge event? Let's see what happens. Let me know in the comment section down below, and thank you for watching. Subscribe if this is your first time here, give this video a big thumbs up, and I will see you next week with what will hopefully be another fun-packed Well That Happened.